So I got another question on Patreon. This one is from Eli, and he said, I've seen your movies list on Letterboxd, and what surprised me is that you seem to be mixed on the filmography by animation legend Ralph Bakshi. If possible, could you maybe make a video explaining your thoughts on the guy? In regards to Bakshi's feature films, I've seen 8 out of the 9 he's directed, with the one exception being Hey Good Lookin'. And he is one of those filmmakers where I like some of his work, and I'm not so wild about some others. But I still appreciate his role in animation history. While not the first animator to make animation aimed specifically at adults, Ralph Bakshi nonetheless showed how it can appeal to a movie-going audience. This is best shown in his first film, Fritz the Cat, which is also my favorite of his work. That movie provided a unique depiction of the youth of the era who was disgruntled at the establishment. By using R. Crumb's underground comics as a source and populating his 70s-era New York with animals, he was able to balance his political commentary with this cat's journey of trying to figure out his role in society. Fritz the Cat became infamous for being the first X-rated animated film, but it was not filthy for the sake of it. While not a perfect film, I think Fritz does a good job of highlighting Bakshi's artistic strengths, and it definitely stood out animation-wise at the time. However, sometimes Bakshi's commentary did seem to get in the way of the story. That's my main issue with Heavy Traffic and Coonskin. Heavy Traffic seems to be talking about a million things at once, with an emphasis on the mafia while also being heavily inspired by Bakshi's own life, and the story gets lost in the shuffle. Coonskin is a bit more specific in how it seeks to comment on race issues in America, but it's still racing a million miles an hour in trying to make all of his points. Fritz, by comparison, found the proper balance between telling Fritz's story and showcasing the film's social satire. Another notable criticism of Bakshi is his overuse of rotoscoping down the road. For me, I'm personally mixed on how this technique was utilized in his work. His adaptation of The Lord of the Rings, which I think is a really good take on the material, used rotoscope in rather clever ways. Bakshi filmed the movie in Spain with live-action actors, and then the animators took the footage and gave a nice bit of variety on how each frame was changed for the final cut. The large cast of Tolkien's characters look like their distinctive selves, with the central figures looking the most animated. The rotoscoping also gives a certain eeriness to the ring wraiths and the orcs, and the battle sequences were definitely helped by the rotoscoping. While certain characters look a tad off, for the most part, Bakshi's Lord of the Rings is a visually pleasing film. It's just a shame it doesn't have an ending. It just sort of stops in the middle of the two towers. Fire and Ice, meanwhile, used rotoscoping as a way to adapt Frank Frazetta's familiar art style. I think the film did a really good job of achieving that goal, and it does look like one of his paintings come to life. Story and character-wise, it's pretty standard, with the young hero trying to save a princess from an evil force, and it goes through the beats you would expect, and the characters are not developed all that well. But it's still an interesting curiosity viewing if you're a fan of Frazetta's artwork. However, I just could not get into American Pop, mostly because of the rotoscoping. I just found it a visually unappealing film to look at, and I never got invested in its story of multiple generations of musicians. Great soundtrack though, but I feel that's all it has going for it. I do really like Wizards, which had Bakshi devising his own fantastical adventure, and I think he did a really good job of setting up this world and its inhabitants. Wizards contains a strong commentary on propaganda and its power of people, and manages to make it fit within the story he's telling. If you're a sucker for good fantasy and world building like I am, I highly recommend Wizards. And then there's Core World, but I don't entirely blame Ralph Bakshi for that film's faults. He had originally planned it as a horror film about a cartoon-human hybrid who seeks revenge on his parents. Bakshi was all set to film that story, but Paramount and Kim Basinger decided to completely change the script while he wasn't looking, and he was stuck with the material he was given. It's just a mess of a story, and the animated characters don't blend with the live-action scenes at all. But it's sort of hard to do your best work when the actors and other people involved decide to mess with your vision and you're stuck with what you have. Despite my mixed feelings on Ralph Bakshi's filmography, there is no denying his place in animation history. He had his independent ideas, or he was passionate about a certain source material, and he went out to pursue it, even when studios thought it was uncommercial. Say what you will about Heavy Traffic or Coonskin or Wizards, but those all contain that undeniable Ralph Bakshi stamp. And long before Peter Jackson directed his take on Middle-earth, Bakshi was that director with a love of J.R. Tolkien's story and the chutzpah to bring it to life. Thank you for your question, Eli, and I was very happy to answer it.